coins any individual should hold. Now, I was on best behavior, I promise you. I only called him a dinosaur once. But I said, this is frankly ridiculous. You know, stablecoin, they're here, they're real, it's not going away. He said it was under review, and I'm pleased to say 1 week after I went to meet the governor, 1 week after I was there, he's removed the limit on the number of stablecoins an individual can hold. And I would say this to all of you in this room, in this industry. Whether you like or dislike many of the political positions that I've taken over the course of the last 3 decades is frankly irrelevant. When it comes to your industry, when it comes to growth in this industry, then I am your champion, and I do make things happen, and I do make things change, and I will go on doing so.
That's very refreshing to hear. I'm just so genuinely curious. You know, is it an ideological bent? Is it the case that many people over here want all of this to happen? What is the core?
Well, like so many things, the gap between those in charge and the real country. You know, I mean, I remember when I came out publicly saying that actually people should hold crypto as part of their portfolio, and that was in 2020. When I said, look, this is here to stay. It's a fascinating space, and I liked it because whilst I'd campaigned for national sovereignty for all those years, here is personal sovereignty. You know, you've got your own money, you're in charge. And by the way, and we'll come to this in a minute, there's a big difference between digital assets and digital ID that Keir Starmer wants for us.
Can we just talk about that now, actually? Can you make that distinction between digital assets and digital identification?
Well, digital ID that the Prime Minister, our authoritarian Prime Minister, wants to bring in would basically mean that the state would be in control of everything. It would be in control of your vaccine status and decide whether you were free to leave your front door or not. You think I'm joking? We had this during the lockdowns. It would be in control of your money, and I would see it. And by the way, I did ask the Governor of the Bank of England 3 weeks ago, where are you with central bank digital currencies? And it's still a work in progress. All right? I don't want digital ID to control every piece of income and expenditure. Don't forget, I am the most famous case of being debanked in this country. They closed me down in 2023, but they'd bitten off more than I could chew because I got rid of the chief executive, which I was very, very pleased with. With digital ID, controlled by government, I mean, let's face it, it would be debanking, potentially debanking on a massive, massive scale. So I'm going to fight. And I've actually said, and I'll say it again, I'd rather go to prison than have digital ID and total state control over my life and over my money. And I mean that. I'm going to fight this, and we are going to win. All right?
Yeah. So we're kind of arriving at this idea of sovereignty. And actually, on the debanking point, I was just describing to someone off stage, actually, when I talk about debanking to people who aren't in this industry, I can hear myself sounding like a conspiracy theorist. You know, you're like, the banks, they have this plot, and they're doing this, and I hear myself, but this actually happened to you.
Well, the thing is, I mean, to admit publicly you've been debanked is a humiliation. It's shameful. It probably will damage how your family think about you, how your business partners will think about you. It may well affect your future credit rating. So people who have been debanked tend not to say so. And when I got the internal bank report on me, the last sentence was, he'll probably be too embarrassed to go public that we've debanked him. Well, of course, they picked on the wrong bloke, couldn't they? And when I said I've been debanked, and I went to 10 other big-name banks, all of whom refused to give me an account, I must admit there was a feeling of fear. Because without a bank account, you can't function. It's as vital as electricity and water coming into your home. But the effect of me saying I'd been debanked was a bit like coming out, really. And suddenly, lots of other voices popped up of people who'd suffered the same humiliation. And we learned that the banks were debanking people in whole sectors, whole industries. Anyone involved with the gun trade, anyone involved with the shooting club, anyone involved with oil or gas exploration, even people working in the sector, were finding themselves refused, finding themselves debanked. Anyone that spoke out against DEI or any of the other absolute lunacies that seem to have gripped our public and private sectors were being debanked. And digital ID will allow people to do that on a much, much bigger scale. So it's got to be fought. It's got to be fought. But ultimately, back to where I started, the governor confirmed that central bank digital currencies are on the agenda. And that, I think, would be the ultimate authoritarian nightmare, literally for every single one of us. And digital ID from Starmer is a step in that direction, it having been confirmed to me that it's still on the agenda, and we have to stop this stuff. What we're talking about in this room is the very opposite of all of those things. It's about us having individual personal sovereignty, individual control over our lives and over our money, and that's why I find it so appealing.
How likely do you think what is the likelihood of a CBDC happening? And every once in a while, I'll see these papers coming out of the ECB, and it's why Bitcoin is still risky and why a CBDC would be much safer.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the view on the ground. How likely is this?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the European Union would love a CBDC,
yeah.
And Starmer, of course, would much rather we were still in the European Union. We're not, mercifully. They will continue work on CBDCs, but if we can defeat digital ID, then I think that will slow the whole process in its tracks. And if and when we win the next election, we will automatically shut down the CBDC project, make all those working on it say, very sorry, chaps, you're out of work. We will stop it overnight. If we don't succeed, and if he does get digital ID through, how far away are we? We're still probably 5 years away. 4 or 5 years away, but they're actively working on it. It's got to be stopped.
So let's say we wave a magic wand and you are the next prime minister of the UK. This will be something I can tell the old grandkids get to do that. What would you do? What would you already have an actual bill that you're working on, or a draft, right?
So we've got the digital assets and crypto bill. That's ready to go. We've got our Britannia card to welcome back the non-doms who fled. Aren't they awful? They're rich. Actually, these people invest huge amounts of money in Britain and create loads of jobs. Equally, we've got to get back the young 30-something entrepreneurs. But as with everything, the complexity of politics is that one thing doesn't work on its own because it's conjoined with other things. And we won't get a flood back to London until we deal with law and order. No one wears, there's probably quite a few of you here not from London, if you want to go out tonight in Mayfair or Chelsea, don't wear a watch or don't wear jewelry. I can't even believe I'm saying that. 5 years ago, that would not have even been a conversation, but suddenly it is. So part of getting the wealth creators and entrepreneurs back is changing policing. Sort of a Rudy Giuliani style policing for London, I think, is very badly needed. And the other point about this industry, and if we extend out to data centers, AI, and crypto itself, of course, the one thing that it absolutely needs is lots and lots of dependable, affordable energy. But of course, we now have the highest industrial energy prices in the world. On bad days, we're actually importing up to 25% of our electricity from Norway, from Belgium, from the Netherlands, because we've taken ourselves down a subsidy route, a net zero route. We've turned our backs on all the resources we still have in this country. So again, we can send all the signals to this industry by passing that bill, but equally, we have to create the other conditions to make it work properly. And that's why it is complex. It's why you can't just wave a magic wand and make everything fantastic overnight. But what you can do to an industry is to say, this is the direction we're going in. And how interesting. Whilst the Financial Times laughs at me, and no doubt will condemn this conference, and whilst the Bank of England's been trying to pretend this world's not happening, despite all of that, and all the negativity in the press, 1 in 4 under 30s in Britain already owns a digital asset of some kind, and 1 in 7 of the entire population already owns crypto in some form. So despite everything, it's happening in this country anyway. Really interesting.
It's fascinating. I told you this anecdote backstage, but there is someone who works at a big bulge bracket in the United States, and they do a poll to their incoming analysts about what commercial bank account do you use, and only in the last couple of years has the most popular category been other, because they don't have Bank of America, JP Morgan, or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, how much of an age kind of demographic, I think sometimes the young people have adopted crypto a little bit quicker than our older counterparts.
Oh, look, that's natural. I mean, you know, to a lot of people over 40 or 50, they are never going to have a digital wallet.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. It's not their world. If they want to get involved in this space, or have exposure to this space, well, I guess that explains why Michael Saylor, you know, and the Bitcoin treasury concept has done so well, because you just buy and sell a share, and I guess that'll come to London as well, because I can't see ETFs coming to London anytime soon, which is madness. I mean, the US exchange ETFs hit 100 billion more quickly than any other ETF that has ever been launched. So, you know, yeah, there is an age, clearly there is a big, big age gap, but there are other ways that older people who are not so tech savvy can get involved.
You know, part of the reason why we've been doing this conference in London for so long is London is a historic financial hub. And as you rightly point out, it has a long history of innovation when it comes to financial products, financial services, et cetera. And you know, what I've been hearing a little bit so far in this conference is that we're worried that the UK might miss the boat when it comes to financial assets.
Well, that's what I said to the governor the other week. We're being left behind. Come on, let's get with it. You know, it obviously gingered him up a little bit because we got what we got on stable coins. But yeah, you know, I mean, equally, the equity market's being crushed. The IPOs are falling off a cliff. As I mentioned already, much of our reinsurance business have now relocated to the Bahamas and elsewhere, and we're falling rapidly behind. And in the 80s, of course, you know, the big bang of the mid-late 80s, and that's worth mentioning, because today is the 100th anniversary of the birth of Margaret Thatcher, and love her or not, she broke up the old city of London. You know, we got massive foreign investment coming in, and we really made London the world's leading centre. That was big bang. If ever you want to have a look at the example of sensible deregulation, getting rid of ridiculous market practices and customs, leading to success, Big Bang in London in the 80s is one of them. And so what we're going to need is Big Bang 2, with this space being right at the epicenter of what we want to try and do.
And Nigel, for those who have less experience in parliament and government than you, it seems like there's a natural process for building up regulation, especially in financial markets. Yeah. Boom happens, bust happens, we need to put in place regulation to make sure that that never happens again. And then you end up over the years with this kind of patchwork, very over-regulated market, and it's hard to pinpoint that that's the problem. How do we go the other way? What is the process, even just from a social level, of how do we get some of this regulation out of the market?
Yeah, well, classic of politicians was Gordon Brown, who was our Chancellor for many years and regrettably our Prime Minister for a couple as well. He's the man that sold 50% of our gold reserves at $275 an ounce. What a genius. Whilst at the same time putting in place massive changes in financial regulation, and declaring no more boom and bust, it's all over. After thousands of years of human civilization, through regulation, I've guaranteed no more boom and bust. And these are the kind of cretins, I'm afraid, that have been running us for too long. And, you know, we do need a marketplace. People can trade product where they trust the marketplace, will not run away, will not steal their cash. All right? We need that. Every market needs. You know, well, when this was a fish market, as it was until about 40 years ago, when this was a fish market, there were some basic rules about what traders had to do. Very basic rules. Thereafter, free enterprise, price competitiveness, quality, were all the things that the people who came into this market to buy fish chose. And it's exactly the same with financial products. At the minute, we've got it all wrong. So it's going to take, and I can tell you this, it isn't just me in reform that's been in business. You know, Richard Tice has been in property development for many, many years. Zia Youssef is a very prominent front figure for the party. Well, he's been a tech entrepreneur who's done very, very well. We are, you know, of course we've got people from other sectors, but we have a lot of men and women in senior positions in reform who've actually lived and worked in the real world of business. And we understand all economies will have good times and bad times. It's natural. That's never going to change. But let's just make sure there's a reasonable, sensible level of regs so that we can do the right thing. And by the way, talking of the gold that Brown sold, we've currently got about £5 billion worth of seized Bitcoin. And she's planning to sell all of that. And what I'm urging is, no, let's keep it, let's have the Bank of England, and let's start to build up and make Bitcoin a reserve category as well.
So, you know, we're taking a lot of shots here at some of the incumbents, which I think rightly so. But if
they take shots at me every day. Don't worry about that. It's just a chance to get my own back.
Well, here's a question that I've always had thought, you know, on the maybe a challenge of your job is your job is to represent your constituents. Well, your constituents might work in some of the industries that are going to get disrupted here. I mean, one thing that I will say for the banks, you know, the banks don't like crypto. Yeah, no shit. We said we're going to disrupt the banks. Down with the banks. So how do you manage representing your incumbents who may be disrupted here versus the innovation that's coming from these markets?
All change has winners and losers. It's called life. It's called life. And if you have a system that is outdated, is not working, is in the case of the banks and debanking prejudicing, I mean, there are still hundreds of thousands of bank accounts closed in this country every single year. We have excessive anti-money laundering rules that mean if a bank sees an unusual payment, it just closes you down. All this to stop money laundering. Yet every high street in Britain now has a proliferation of Turkish barbers where they don't cut any hair, they only take cash, and there's a brand new Lamborghini parked out the back. I mean, you know, the AML regs are a sledgehammer to miss the nut, and for every 100 quid we're spending, on regulation to seek money laundering, we're only getting £1 back the other way. So, yes, our financial services industry in this country needs disrupting. And there will be some losers, but there'll be a lot more winners.
All right, so we've got about 2 more minutes here, and I want to close down actually on this word sovereignty that we talked about. That's a critical word for anyone that's been involved in this industry, and I think, you know, while there are financial reasons to work in this industry, that's probably what tugs at people's heartstrings the most. And it's interesting to be speaking to you here in the UK because there have been a couple of, this is going to sound not related to crypto, but recent laws around hate speech and what you're allowed to say online and some of that policing. And I would love you to just connect, you know, what's going on with there to the importance of having financial freedom specifically. Help me connect these two ideas.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the Online Safety Act, which I mentioned not so long ago. So you have to be 18 or over to access a lot of content. No, not that sort of content. What an audience. But even news content. Some of it you have to be aged over 18 to access. And of course, the first hack has happened already, as it was bound to do. We have two-tier justice, where certain sections of the country, because of their religion, are given more space and more freedom than the rest of it. Two-tier justice, two-tier policing, two-tier care has made a lot of people in Britain very, very angry. There's a sense, particularly from America, I think, that free speech in Britain really is under assault. I think it is too. We've got to fight back against that. But back to the point, or finish on the point of sovereignty, I campaigned for a quarter of a century for national sovereignty against the unelected, globalist, and in my view, appalling institutions of the European Union. And we've won that battle. We've got back our sovereignty. We haven't used it very well, but we got it back. This campaign, and the reason I'm sitting here this morning talking to all of you, this is about individual sovereignty. This is about governments not controlling us. It's about banks not closing us down. It's about crypto being allowed back in from the cold. I mean, you transfer money every month from your bank account into crypto, they will close your account down. That's what's been happening in this country. Individual sovereignty is the freedom to be in control of and do what you want with your own money, to make your own life decisions. And this is part of my next big battle, which is to fight to win the next election in this country and to turn everything round by 180 degrees.
Nigel, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Very good indeed. Thank you very much. Very, very good. Not enough time.
Thank you for attending this morning's programming. Please enjoy lunch in our networking area. Our afternoon programming will resume at 1:30 p.m. Thank you.